Hello. I thought since today was our first virtual lab that I would get a video ready showing you how to access and um, get to that and what you are supposed to be doing with this virtual lab. So what would happen is, let's just pretend that I was in my homeroom and I had just gotten done listening to the morning announcements, and I wanted to start on science. So what would happen is you would go to your science course, obviously, and then you would open up your current folder. And today is Wednesday, 4/8, and then you have some student directions there. So I'm going to click on that. You'll notice in the student directions at the top here, we are going to continue learning about force and motion. And this is on Discovery Ed. I've provided you the link so you can click on that. And then it will open up a new page and you will log in with your username and password. You do not need to have @mypanthers.org. You just need to log in with your username and password. And then on your front screen, you'll have an assignment page, and you are going to click on the assignment about force, and it is called What is Force? Okay. What is Force is what the title of this lab is. And I'm just going to go back to my Schoology really quickly so that I can kind of show you what it is we will be doing with that. So if you look here, our big question of the day is, what is force? The first step is right here. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to read, what is a force? And then it also says, because we started some Cornell notes yesterday, and if you didn't, we can start some new Cornell notes for science about force and motion. And I made sure to include the video and the Cornell Notes page example that I had in, I believe it was Language Arts the other day. So I will make sure and post that in here as well so that you guys have that. You are going to add gravity, the word gravity, to your notes. Remember that if you click on things in Discovery Ed, it will actually come up with the definition for you. That is right here. So you'll read about force. Here's the word gravity. Second step of this virtual lab today is to watch force. That's 3 minutes and 24 seconds. We can see that right here, 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Think about what forces you've experienced as you're watching this. You'll notice down here, it talks a little bit about what work is and what the actual definition of work is. So once you have gone through and read that piece on what is force, and you've watched the video on force, what you are going to be doing today is a virtual lab. And I'm going to click back over to the Discovery Ed here in a second. And we are going to be, as you go down on the page, you get to a piece that looks like this, pulling your weight. And what you're going to do is, if we look back at our directions, it says, watch the video on how to use the science tool called a spring scale. It measures force, and that is right here in this link, and you'll click on that and see what a spring scale is and actually how we can use spring scales. Now, I believe we actually use spring scales on our simple machines unit that we did a couple months ago. So then what you're going to do is you are going to review the student planning sheet for pulling your weight lab. And that's down here. It's right here for you. I have actually pulled it up already just so that we can have it. So this is what it looks like. So I'm going to click back and forth between this page and the actual lab, just so that you have an idea of what to expect when you get there. So we can see that this is our virtual lab titled Pulling Your Weight. Okay, here at the top, we've got space for 3 variables. Now, we all want to remember that variables are the things that we can change in an experiment. Okay, these 3 variables are listed there in the lab. So you choose out of the 3, and then you choose one to change. You need to come up with a question that we can ask that this lab is going to be testing. This needs to be a fair test, and we need to remember that to be a fair test, we can only change one thing. And then your hypothesis, what you think is going to happen and why you think that. And then the procedure that you went through is this last piece right here. Like, what did you do first? What did you do next? What did you do after that? So if I go back up to this, you can see that when we click on that link to the actual lab, you'll have a screen here that gives you some directions. Okay, the World's Strongest Person Contest is a popular event around the world. One event involves pushing or pulling heavy objects for a certain distance. The event committee has asked you to help them find out how to make it hardest to move a heavy object. So let's look at that again. It says the event committee has asked you to help them find out how to make it the hardest to move a heavy object. That might be one of our questions. So second page, to help the committee, you will need to consider and collect data on several things. So 1, the type of surface across which the object was moved. 2, the size and the shape of the object being moved. 3, the mass of the object. Ding, ding, ding. Those might be some of our variables that we should be thinking about. And then 4, what you're thinking. Which is harder, pushing or pulling an object? So in level 1, you'll compare pushing and pulling as a force. You can also try moving the heavy object on different surfaces. You can make the object heavier or lighter. You will have Boris, the world's strongest man, to help you. So in level 2, you can make the object using different shapes, sizes, and materials. Then have Boris move it across different surfaces. So you can see here, you'll go ahead and enter your name, Mr. S. And then I'm going to choose level 1 just because I want to show you what is happening here. So you can choose the type of floor, the amount of mass, or the type of force. So these might be the 3 things that you can change. Click on the variable selector buttons to see how you can change the conditions for the strongest person event. So we can change these 3 things, okay? Use the planning sheet before you start the lab. Ask yourself, is this a fair test? Present your plan to your teacher for approval. So what that means is when you are at this point and you have gone through and reread the directions, you will be opening back up to our nice handy dandy little virtual lab. So now that we hopefully know those 3 things that we would be changing in this experiment, you need to choose 1. Once you've chosen 1, we want you to write that question down. What are we testing? What are we trying to figure out? And then you need to decide, is it a fair test? Are you changing more than one thing, or are you just changing one thing? You need to write down your hypothesis and the procedure that you went through. So to do this, we also have a sheet that you have access to as well. Okay, so when you are doing this in level 1, we want you to do at least 5 different parts, or 5 different, I guess what would we call them? 5 different scenarios. So test number 1. You're going to write down the floor type. You're going to write down the amount of mass that you are trying to push. Is it your force type is either going to be a push or a pull. And then how many newtons needed. This is what is measured on the spring scale. Okay. I want you to do at least 5 of those. If you can do more than 5, that would be awesome. Okay. Once you are at this point right here, let's go back to our directions in Schoology really quickly, just so that we know. You are going to go from there. We will be talking a little bit about this later on, and there will be a discussion post that goes along with this where you can post your. Actually, we are going to post this into a assignment once you have finished. So once you have gone through in your notebook or you have gone through in your on your iPad in Schoology, you can go ahead and submit this to that assignment. If you have any questions, please, please, please email me or give me a phone call, or not a phone call, email me or a Schoology message, and we will go from there. Okay? I hope you have a good day. We'll talk soon.